I love fairy tale stories in finals. I think they're great, and I can't go past Luke Ball. His goal at the end of the game, it was gone. Buddy had kicked his goal, and that was going to be the thing I loved if I had your permission to love Hawthorn again. But to see Luke Ball grab the ball and snap it on his left, week after he did it in the other final, look at that, just one go to find the space. I was just wrapped for Luke Ball. I think Luke Ball's become in the last 2 years since he's gone to Collingwood, an all-round favourite. Everyone likes to see him do well. I don't think the Saints supporters, I reckon deep down they do. But I just loved the moment. He stood up and kicked the goal.
Mark McClure, David King, welcome.
Gerard.
Mark, how are you feeling about it?
Terrific, actually. We've got the best two sides. They've been around about for 4 or 5 years. One's playing in their 4th grand final in 5 years, and one's playing their 3rd grand final in 2 years. What better can it be? I think it's just spectacular what's going to happen.
It is the heavyweights, King, isn't it?
Been a very predictable year, really, when you look at the way the season's fallen. The top two sides have gone about it the way they normally do and made the grand final, which is great. And I think there's been some intrigue this week, which no doubt we'll talk about, but it's had a bit of everything this week.
Let's start with Collingwood, who trained today and looked to have answered a couple of questions. Darren Jolly and Ben Reid were put through their paces, and presumably there was a bit of a dry run on the medical front in all of this as well. Jolly in numerous drills with both Cameron Wood and with Anthony Rocker, and Mick Malthouse keeping a close eye on him to see how he would get through and move with the groin injury. And then Ben Reid sort of took his turn along the way as well. What's the decision facing Collingwood here? Can they both play? How big a punt is it?
Well, this is the matchup we haven't really spoken about. The Geelong doctors, Bradshaw and Allen versus Page and Shuttleworth at Collingwood. The matchup we haven't talked about, because there's going to be a big decision made here, whether it's right or wrong. You know, whether they play and they shouldn't have, or whether they don't play, whichever way it goes. And we won't really know until Saturday, 5 o'clock, in reality.
Significant the handshake after training. Did you see the footage of that? When Darren Jolly, did you think it was significant?
No, I didn't actually. I thought it was just, well, he got through, great, fantastic. But I actually watched him, he was a bit proppy at times, and a couple of little things when he actually landed a different way. And training's different to playing a game. I mean, they are just going through the motions. I mean, you get in the game, it's a little bit harder than that, I can assure you.
The Reid one for me is the one, because he's come off already a checkered preparation. Injured 3 weeks ago, missed a block of football in that game, week off, comes back, injured again. So his preparation to a grand final has really been under scrutiny, no doubt. And I feel for him, because there's no way he's going to be around 100%. He couldn't possibly be near 90%. So for him to play, that's the risk for me.
So if they both play, as Gerard asked you, if they both play, is it a risk to play them both?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got to have fit players. You just cannot. What happens if one goes down the first quarter? You're caught with 2 on the bench, and then Reid may go down, and then you're caught with 1 on the bench, and he's got an adductor or a quad or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they can go any time. I mean, if he actually stretches and pushes, and he's played well within himself last week. He didn't actually do much. He was very quiet. He couldn't kick the ball properly. Didn't actually. He just handballed it off. He was in the wrong space.
Yeah,
he couldn't get to the contest, and that's where because he's athletic, he has to be able to do that stuff.
But that's why I think they have to play Goldsack. He has to come in.
For who?
Probably for Beams. He just hasn't had a great month. I think he's only had.
But does that solve the injury problem?
Well, it's a backup as the sub. I'd put him as the sub, because if Reid's going well, you can still use Goldsack in other areas. But if you bring in Fasalo or leave Beams there, you've really only got that half forward, small role covered. If Reid goes down, it changes so many matchups and the whole back six, if you like. If you've got Goldsack there, you can cater for that. The ruck, different issue. I think Goldsack's a must.
Can I ask you both about the ferocity of football now? I mean, you played not a long time ago, but a generation ago. That's a long time ago. Kingy, you played when? 10, 12 years ago?
Too long ago.
The ferocity of football, has it got greater compared to when, I think it has been, it is, but you can't go in surely in the ferociousness of these games without being able to move in all directions very, very quickly, because that's what the press has presented to football now. So days gone by, you might have been going straight up the line.
Yeah, I understand that. They're in a confined space with a lot of people around them, and that's where you've got to be. And the heat is on, and it's easy to get, but it's hard to get rid of. It's one of those sort of spaces when you're in. So that's why, if you haven't got leg power and leg speed and your legs aren't right, you can't get out of the way. You get killed, and you get into trouble, and you become a liability.
The game's changed in terms of you only had to beat your man. I say you only had to beat your man. You
You
competed
beat
one-on-one against your opponent when the ball came in your area in years gone by, and that's probably the end of my generation, really. Now, you're asked to be involved in the game all the time. When you're in possession, when you're out of possession, you've still got a role to play with the press or with guarding space or a tackle rate. So what you do without the ball is nearly as important as what you do with it. So I think that's been the biggest change.
So Geelong trained behind closed doors today, and they said that David Wojcinski trained, and his absence yesterday was nothing to worry about. So Steve Johnson, I suspect the Johnson one is quite easy. He'll do a fitness test on Friday, and he will either pass or flunk. That's where it's different to a soft tissue injury in my mind. He will either be able to stand, run, turn and move, or not. And he'll play or not play on that basis.
No doubt about it, but he's a big loss because he takes a good player. And once
Harry.
He takes Harry O'Brien. And even if he takes Harry and he's not quite 100%, he can take him to spaces where you don't want him to be and be smart that way and come in and out every now and then. He's a smart player, Stevie J. He's a ripper player. I suppose Burns is the one who's going to come in for him, I think, as a small, if the weather's going to be the way it is. You don't need any more... Oh, no, I don't think so. You need some leg speed. You know, you need leg speed. And Milburn's a seasoned player. He's more a half-back flanker type style. And I don't think they need any cover there. I'm not certain they need a lot of cover there. So I think they need more a goal attacking.
Do they jab Steve Johnson up on Friday, Kingy, to do with the fitness test? So they jab him up and say, right, you're going to train you under match preparations, which we're going to go jab, jab, jab around your knee.
Yep.
Structurally, they reckon it's sound. So to get rid of the pain, can he play?
I think that's the only way you can do it. There's no other way to do it. You need to say, these are going to be your match conditions tomorrow. Yep. This is how you'll feel. How do you go? How can you cope? And you're right. He either passes or he fails, and they make a decision accordingly. He needs to trial that. If it doesn't work, well, that's okay. But there's no point worrying about being sore Sunday. They need to get right on Saturday afternoon. Can he contribute? Because no point putting him out there if he can't do those things. If he can't be the player we know that he is. That's my problem. Look, I think he's a bigger loss than people give him credit for. They've had to balance their whole midfield and half-forward line this year with Ablett moving clubs, and they've just got it right. You know, Chapman does his bit middle forward. You know, Christensen's come in and been very good. Stevie J's been playing as much midfield as he has forward. So it's not an easy replacement. That's the hard part.
It's interesting. There's not much between these sides, and we're sitting here all talking about it, you know, all about what it is. It's who's got the best character on the day, and there's a lot of other things involved about, you know, the basics well, do all the little things well, trust in your mate. Is he going to be there selfless for you at times? Who's going to do that better? Because there's naught in the actual score at the end of the day, and these things make an enormous effort, enormous difference. Do what you can do. Don't try and be a star. Sometimes people go in and say, I've got to try and win this game. Well, you're joking if you can, because most people can't. And you just got to play to the best of your ability. You don't have to be a great player, you just got to be a really good contributor, whether it be hit up, punch the ball away and all those sorts of things. There's a couple of examples of that. Daniel Kerr in the 206 or 207 game, that run he did was spectacular. Then the Daniel Chick smother and tackle to win the game. And he didn't have 7 possessions, but I'll remember that till the day I die, Daniel Chick doing that stuff. And Matty Scarlett toe poke, which was spectacular. Little things that make an enormous difference. And Leo Barry's mark, they'll stick with me forever. Not everyone can do that, but you can contribute in some way. And what will happen is someone will come out of here a star. One kid will, or whoever it would be. You know, the word greatness will attach to him forever. And we've seen that happen with Jimmy Bartel, maybe Kelly, Otten, Selwood, Scarlett Ling. Maybe it's Christian and West who emerge as good kids and come through. Maybe it's Swan Pendlebury, you know, all their stars, and Ball and Harry O'Brien and Maxwell and Cloak and Dawes and Shaw. And then you've got the really good stories of Davis coming back. And then you got Tarrant and you got Cracker, who are sensational stories.
Here's your list of players.
Is there any left?
No. But that's why it's a great
That's why it's a great contest.
I'm pretty sure you got the Norm Smith medalist in there somewhere.
I'm not certain about that.
Talk about character. Sellers, how many premierships did you play in?
3.
Right, you before the game you weren't talking about, you know, Jez will do this, we need to do that. It was exactly what you just said then. So character in the wet.
That's where I got it from.
Who do you think will have the greater character in 16 degrees and hail?
Yeah, look, we don't know. We can't answer that. You'll answer that at 5 o'clock.
They've both got tremendous amount of character.
I don't think it's about character. I think as 2 teams going head to head, they are very, very even. Make no mistake about that. That's over the last 2 years, not just this year. I think it's whoever cashes in. You'll both have 10 minutes of momentum. It'll shift and swing right through the game. Whoever can put that on the scoreboard will win the game. You look back at the grand finals of the last couple of years. St Kilda had Geelong on the rack in their first quarter of 09, didn't put it on the scoreboard. Milne missed, Schneider missed, and it proved costly at the end. You had the Hawks against Geelong in 08, and every opportunity they had, they put it on the scoreboard. Stewie Jew, made himself famous for that half hour of football. And I just think, when you've got your ascendancy, it has to go on the scoreboard. And someone will leave a bit in the bag and someone will cash in.
Hawthorn last week.
Yeah.
Just didn't do it. They had control of the game. They didn't do it. One last question from me for both of you is the key forwards in the wet. Pressure on Pods, pressure on everyone. Travis Cloke, to me, looms even larger now with his strength, because there's going to be a lot of strength work in the wet. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, we spoke about that before. We were just seeing it before.
Yeah.
I think the tools are most important in the wet, especially up forward, because they actually create a contest. And then they have to bring the ball to the right spot. And then you'll see front and square players. As we saw Acker in one final kick a goal, front and square. All that sort of stuff. That'll be basic, simple things that your drills that you've done all your life. So they'll be most important to have the tools there in the right spot to bring the ball down. And maybe even catch a couple.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'd be doing. I'd be strapping Andrew Cracker as close as I could to Travis Cloke, because what he doesn't catch, Cracker will put the icing on.
And Christensen to Podsiadly up the other end. Pods has been attacking the ball as good as any key forward we've seen this year.
You talk about players in the wet at the MCG. Have a look through the form line of Andrew Cracker under those conditions. He's a goal kicker. He could walk away with 4 or 5 goals and be the story of the year.
Who plays the best wet with a football?
Look, I find it hard to split the two.
Yeah.
They've both got great wet weather players, which you mentioned earlier. So I find it really hard. And I don't think that they're unaccustomed to contested footy either, these two teams. When it gets down and dirty, they love it. They thrive. And I think that's why we're all fascinated with what's going to happen.
And the relevance of recent form. How are you measuring up recent encounters? You could go back to 2007 if you wanted, but if you restricted it to this year.
I had a feeling you were going to do it.
Really? I have a feeling I know where you'll go.
I put a line through round 24 because I just thought that was a nonsense. The season was over effectively for Collingwood. I went back to the round 8 game, and that was an absolute classic game. And the sides aren't dissimilar when you look at who was in and out. Jolly didn't play that night, and there was a couple of slight changes. Maxwell didn't play, and it was a 3-point result, and it was a genuine arm wrestle. The Cats got away to a flyer, kicked the first 8 behinds of the game, and then the Pies come back. And it was through Swan going to full forward, Thomas going to Selwood. I just think there's a few little things they learnt that night. They didn't show in round 24 that they may show. Hard to fault the form of both sides. I think the press has fallen away. You must say that for Collingwood.
It has. And Geelong have actually changed their style. Their long kicking style, one handball, one kick, that type of thing. They went, instead of having 450 to 500 possessions a game, they're having under 300 and winning comfortably. So that's a different change altogether, and that's good finals football.